For Bruin247.com, Connor Morrissette and Mike Regalado. Mike, we have a regular season Big Ten undefeated champion to talk about. UCLA women's basketball comes into the Galen Center, and as we pretty much expected, they roll over USC 73-50 to end the regular season undefeated in the Big Ten, 28-1 record heading into the Big Ten tournament. Just big picture thoughts. We'll get into the game in a second. Big picture thoughts on a blowout win for UCLA that we all expected, but the job is done. They're undefeated in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough game here in Galen Center. It's very cavernous. I've been to many UCLA USC games here, and UCLA, a lot of teams actually don't play that well. They don't shoot that well, but seeing what UCLA did in the first game, it seemed like it was going to repeat itself. Even though we're at USC's home, there did seem to be a lot of UCLA fans, which helped fuel that fire. And there were a few times where the Bruins kind of had a bit of a lull, but as they always do, they right the ship. They make some in-game changes and come out with another double-digit 23-point win, 73-50.
Charlize Ledger-Walker tied a season high with 20 points. With everything that she's been through, the injuries, it's great to see her have that game on this court going into the postseason. Lauren Betts, not the typical scoring output from her, but 15 rebounds. USC just doesn't have a center in her stratosphere this year, and she was able to take over 9 offensive rebounds. That was probably the story of the game, where UCLA grabs 22 offensive rebounds compared to only 5 for USC. Totally dominated the women of Troy on the glass. That was kind of the case in the first matchup. That was the case again tonight, and I don't know how many teams in America outside of UConn can match up with this UCLA team on the interior. Even when Lauren Betts isn't scoring, she affects the game in so many ways. Yeah,
and she's just there's a reason she's the defensive player of the year, reigning defensive player of the year, and it looks like she's in the mix for that as well. But with this team, she doesn't have to do it all. I've been saying this all season long, where last year it seemed that she had to be the one to she was the go-to. This year, not as much, because you have some great shooters, 4 guards that help her out in the starting lineup, as well as Dugalich, who helps out more of a stretch 4, but she makes some big shots too. But yeah, Lauren Betts is just she's just a player you cannot take your eye off of. Obviously, she's 6'7", hard to take your eye off her. But if you give her an inch, she'll take the whole thing. And tonight she proved that again.
Just such a dominant performance on the glass. Corey Close called this team the best that she's ever coached at USC. Heading into the Big Ten tournament undefeated. They have so much ahead of them, but a big talking point in the post-game press conference was to not get ahead of themselves. Don't let the goals determine how they act day to day. They just want to focus on winning the day. They certainly did today. And a big key to that, Mike, was at the beginning of the third quarter, USC was down 18 points. They probably weren't going to come back, but 9-0 run for the women of Troy. Was an 11-2 start for the women of Troy in that third quarter. Timeout Corey Close, and then the Bruins put their foot on the gas. What was your concern level when USC started the third quarter the way they did?
Yeah, that was interesting, because I knew that wasn't typical UCLA defense. And sure enough, within 2 minutes of the third quarter, Corey Close calls a timeout. And after that, they just start pulling away. And that's what they do. They kind of have to just reset, figure out what to do, and capitalize on opponents' mistakes and really play up to their own strengths.
Luckily, this microphone will pick up what we're saying, but you can hear some background noise in the Galen Center. We're almost wrapping up here. I want to focus, Mike. We started big picture. Let's finish big picture. We expect UCLA to win the Big Ten tournament. Easier said than done, of course, that they will be tested. The Michigan game was close in Ann Arbor. The Ohio State game was close for UCLA in Columbus. Those were the only 2 close games really they had all year. But if they face those teams, potential matchups to pay attention to. But this is all about making the Final Four for this year's team, potentially facing a UConn in the championship game. It's so hard not to get ahead of yourself when you're this good. You're 28-1. What does the team need to do to not get ahead of themselves? And I kind of feel like if they bow out of the Big Ten tournament, even in the second round or whenever they play in that first round game, like, it's Final Four or bust, and nothing that happens next week in Indianapolis will make me feel otherwise. I still feel like they can get there, and they should get there.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to win some games, and even if you don't win the championship, I still believe that they lock up an overall number 1 seed, probably the number 2 seed, because UConn is undefeated and should be undefeated going into the NCAA tournament. But UCLA just has to focus on their game, trying to match up with the teams, especially if they get into another game with like Michigan or Michigan State, who played them pretty close. They can't falter. They can't, and this team doesn't look ahead. They are not a very conceited team, but they are consistent in what they do, and they just got to keep doing that.
It's a very unique spot to be in, where the expectations are so high, and they will be challenged, but the reality is if this team doesn't make a Final Four or championship, it'll be a disappointing year. So I'm happy to be along for the ride now. We're starting late. You've been covering this UCLA women's basketball team all season, but this has been a Bruin Breakdown video from the Bruin 24/7 crew. I hope you're liking what we're doing over on the 24/7 Sports Network. Our first ever video, our first day doing this was today. Mike, thanks for joining us, and you can expect a lot more of these. But for Mike, I'm Connor, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.